Welcome, Professor Dr. Kristina Shea. Thank you for taking part in the Embassy of Switzerland's series, Innovating in Times of Crisis. You are the Department Chair of Engineering, Design and Computing at ETH Zürich. I am the Ambassador of Switzerland to the United States of America. So let's talk about the challenges that we've been facing in these very, very difficult times. I should start by introducing ETH, or the Federal Institute for Technology in Zurich, but it should be known to everyone because it's consistently ranked as one of the top technical universities in the world. We are extremely proud of the Federal School in the University in Zurich. So can you tell me a little bit something about the academic cooperation between the Federal Institute and academic institutions in the US?
Yes. So next to collaborations within Europe, the US is the next largest external collaborator for ETH through many collaborations with the top universities in the US. And I think this has been for a while now. So for myself, I keep in close contact with Carnegie Mellon, where I went to do all of my degrees, and have close collaborations also with schools like MIT and Harvard. But I think this is common among many professors at ETH.
One of the things that has been really changing over the past 20 years in the corporate culture of both Federal Institutes for Technology in Lausanne and in Zurich is going more the American way of cooperating more closely between the academic world and the private industry, which is something that was not really present in Switzerland. It really changed. We have become more American. Did you also feel this over the years you worked with the Federal Institute?
Yes, I think there are a lot of close ties with industry in Switzerland, but also abroad. And this continues. And so I think one big difference I see in coming to ETH is that industry contacts us directly also to collaborate. So it's common that they come to us with a topic or a challenge that they want to work on. And then we discuss projects at all levels, whether with master's students, doctoral students, or postdoctoral researchers.
Has COVID changed the way that you are going about your business, your research and development? And by the way, can you tell me something about the development of the low-cost ventilator that you have led the research, I think, on this low-cost ventilator?
Yes, I think it's changed not just my research, but a lot of people's in terms of our response to the COVID challenges. Everything moves so fast. So when the lockdown in Switzerland came mid-March, within only 10 days, there was a research call announced from the Office of Research at ETH, and 28 projects were submitted by different groups of professors and evaluated and allowed to proceed. So now it's about 60 projects total at ETH, all COVID related. And so we really jumped on the challenges from many different viewpoints. So engineering, but also the medical side as well. And so that, the speed at which everything is moving is, I think, for me, the biggest change. And so everything was done really quickly, and many of us are still continuing. So in that, I proposed a project on low-cost ventilator in the response originally to COVID, motivated by that. So we're looking at developing a ventilator that's now beyond COVID, so more for field use in low and middle income countries. We want to provide something that's low cost, but also high quality, and are focusing on a whole product view so that it's a robust product, easy to maintain, and also considers the use and easy to use, as well as training aspects. Through this project, we are collaborating now with the Ukraine. This is a collaboration that started actually towards the beginning of the lockdown, and it's intended to be produced and used there. So it's a really exciting project, a very new way to collaborate also with governments.
Speaking of, I mean, there is the phase of development and cooperating with governments, but there is the phase of production. Have you entered already the industrial phase, or are you at the onset of the industrial phase of producing this low-cost ventilator?
Yes, so they've already produced 3 prototypes. We have one of them here that we've tested, and we're working on the production of the second prototype before they start a small series production. So that's the current plan, and we're moving as rapidly as we can.
On the personal note, I have a brother who is an intensive care doctor. He's the one who succeeded in the family, so he keeps telling me, well, it's one thing to produce a ventilator, but it's like you produce a fighter jet. You need a pilot. How easy is your product? How easy to operate is it compared, let's say, to a traditional ventilator?
So in the beginning of the COVID pandemic, there were special requirements put out from the US, but also from the UK. And these were for these emergency use ventilators, which is what we focused on. And one of the conditions there was that people could be trained in 30 minutes. That's really optimistic. But where it came from, though, was the retraining of medical doctors that don't traditionally use ventilators, but that could be called in to help during the crisis. At least in places like Switzerland, that need has gone away. We still want to make it as easy and straightforward to use as possible with our interface, but also we have a collaborator now at the University Hospital, and she's looking specifically at the training material that will be required as well to be able to put this into effective and sustainable use and safe use. I mean, that's of course really important for us as well.
Of course. Are there any other COVID-related research and developments that the Federal Institute has been working on, or is still working at the moment?
Yes, there are still about 60 projects going on at the university, COVID-related. So some are in medical equipment like ours, but also in testing, for example, low-cost testing devices. Also in terms of, there's a study going on 1 year long with 3,000 members of ETH to look at the immune response over 1 year of this population at ETH. And so there are many different aspects of the work that's going on, COVID related. And I expect this will go on for quite a while. It's really posed many new challenges, actually.
Yeah, well, it's generally said that crises, like wars, pandemics, you name it, do foster innovation and do change the procedures and the way you're going about the business generally all over the world. Do you feel this particular crisis has really changed the way you work?
I think it's, so in terms of my own research in my lab, I've been wanting to focus more on projects that have social impact. And this was a great challenge that came and moved that along a lot farther than I imagined. And so that's the biggest change. And I really hope that stays. I mean, it's amazing what people can do in a short amount of time. And if we can keep that up, we can really look at some of the big challenges globally that are out there and try to solve them.
What might be the long-term implications for the academic world and for schools, universities like yours, of what we've learned in the COVID crisis? Are we going to go more into MOOCs? Are we going to use more and more, let's say, socially distant or distance learning? Are we going back to the traditional classes? Will we learn to be faster in the procedures in research, because we realize in the pandemic, time is of the essence, and we know the next pandemic is coming at some point. So what's the future of the academic, of the post-COVID academic world?
I think there are a lot of potential post-implications. I mean, you mentioned teaching. So here we're teaching mostly lectures online. I teach, for example, in the first year, we have in my department almost 550 students. And so lectures are online, but focusing on in-presence exercises. So they come for the smaller exercises in bubbles of 25 students. And so we've split the teaching that way. And there are some great lessons to be learned from this. The online teaching, in my view, so far works for these large lectures. And maybe that's something that we keep for the future. But we need some presence as well. So I think there's much benefit in that, especially with the younger students. In terms of research, I think, for me, the biggest change will be the speed at which we can move, but we need to move with speed, but also, with enough caution as well, and this balance between the two, and to be able to really focus on these social impact projects. So for years, research agencies have been asking us to, how does our research have a social impact, or in Switzerland, how does it impact the Swiss population? And in some projects, it is a struggle to find that link, but in COVID, it's motivated a lot of new projects and technologies as well, that the need is there. And so it can be demonstrated. So I hope we keep that up as well in the longer term.
Now, obviously, everything had to be sped up and made faster. And we hear different voices saying that research had become a little bit slow because it was a little bit complacent. But also the other voices saying it was mainly due to government regulation that's becoming heavier and heavier and heavier, so that you have so many constraints once you're doing research, that it does indeed slow down the whole research process. Where would you be in that discussion?
It's a challenge. I think in general, the research world is sped up because of the international competition. That's actually what drives most researchers. And that world's very fast, and especially competing, for example, with the US. We're all in the global research world.
Yeah.
And so, but there are some research projects take time, and you need the time also for the creative thought to develop the projects and to carry them out rigorously. So it's a balance, And I think right now people are trying to move very fast, but at least for my side, we do that as fast as we can, but also with caution, so that we in the case of medical equipment, we can produce something that's going to be safe. So we don't want to sacrifice that.
Because you are representing one of the top research institutions in the world, I was about to ask you, how do you feel about science being put more and more into question by people who might not really have your background, and increasingly, maybe it's the influence of the social media, tend to believe scientific approaches that might not fulfill all the scientific standards of the Federal Institute in Zurich. So how do you feel about this wave of flat earthers approach to science?
That's an interesting question, actually. There's different levels of understanding of science. There's science, and there's some people that are really good at it. There's science that is put out for social media, and as long as it's technically correct, just explained in a way that's better for the general public, that's a great thing. It's when it's not correct, or it's not as rigorous as you say, that gets a little bit dangerous. And the other is, as with any, not just science, but with any domain these days, the false information that's out there is also dangerous. We can't really control. I mean, we can control what we put out, but we can't control it globally. So I think if we can put out the views that we want, but in a way everyone can understand, that's the real benefit of these platforms. But that's accurate information.
Indeed, that's indeed one of the challenges that we are going to face as societies in the 21st century. Now, okay, the current times have certainly been challenging for the Federal Institute, for you, for everyone. But let's have an optimistic end to this interview. What was the most positive lesson that you personally and the institution maybe drew from these admittedly horrible months we've been through?
So I think that's it, is that, there are silver linings, but there's been such a big price that's been paid internationally. I think for me, the biggest, I'm not sure surprise, but is the outpouring of people that want to help. When we started our ventilator project, in the first article that ETH published about it, I got an amazing amount of emails from all sorts of people, from Swiss industry, from ETH alumni that, for example, were from, for example, South America or Africa, and they wanted to help in some way, and were asking, how they could be involved and help. And I think also at ETH, the amount of students we had that wanted to get involved and help, and people, and that's amazing to see. We're challenged more of how to organize everybody so it's better than just good intentions. But I think internationally, that is one of the messages of the whole pandemic. Is that generally people really want to get involved and try to help to fight this and solve it.
Crises do indeed bring people together, even if it's virtually. So thank you so much for this fascinating interview, Professor Shea, and I hope I'm waiting for in the next few years to see the Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich top the ranking of scientific institutions in the world. At some point, that's the goal. You'll be at the top of the podium, and we will be extremely proud. So thank you so much, and I wish you a very nice, evening, I guess, in Zurich, or end of the afternoon.
Thanks as well for the interesting discussion.
Thank you.